Welcome back to the Women's Basketball Summit, the online platform for female basketball players, coaches, strength coaches, and basketball enthusiasts. Today, my guest is Lee Taft. I consider Lee the go-to guy when it comes to speed training, but I also think he is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to basketball because he's trained basketball players. He's in the trenches every day. So, Lee, welcome to the call, my friend.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate you having me on. This is awesome and very exciting for everyone.
Oh, great. So for people that missed you last time on the Female Athlete Summit, tell us a little bit about yourself and so the audience can get familiar with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, by trade, I was a phys ed teacher. That was my degree. And then my master's was in sports science. So I've been in strength and conditioning for just about 30 years. And, I grew up in a family of teachers, phys ed, and they were all into fitness. So I kind of had a real good background with it as a young person. And then over the years, I just kind of developed a system of training. I've learned a lot from really smart people. And I did a lot of just investigating of how movement should occur and a lot of watching. I'm just this type of person. I love to watch and just study movement. So a lot of things that I teach, especially through basketball, having such a big background in basketball and having played at the collegiate level and coached it for many years and trained a lot of athletes, that's kind of where my path has gone. And, and I've just been fortunate to have, kids that have, kind of enjoyed it as well. So it's been great.
So I know we were just talking, your daughter just went off to college to start her freshman year and she's playing basketball. But talk a little bit like your specific work that you do with basketball players. I know you train them on the court, but you also train them in the weight room.
Yeah, definitely. So if I get the opportunity to work with them specifically on basketball skills, we'll certainly work on areas of one thing that I'm really big on is I think we've made a mistake often in our profession and especially in basketball is we try to spend too much time on the weaknesses and neglect the strengths. I think we have to make sure what makes us good, we keep making that better, and then we bring up the weaknesses so it's not a limitation. It can still be weaker than the strength. So I spend a lot of time on that, and that's even athletically speaking as well. If I have an athlete that doesn't jump really well, but they're deceivingly quick, they have good moves. Well, we want to maintain that, but we want to be able to not have jumping be such a limitation that they can't compete at a level that's probably higher than they're going to be used to over time. So I spend a lot of time on that. Now, in terms of the strength and conditioning and speed work, we really try to break down the skill of it. I'm just a big fan of, if we understand how to move, how to position our body to move better, to be not only be a greater performer, but also to be safer, because that's a real important concern for all of us, for any athlete, but especially with our female population. So I spend a lot of time in making sure athletes are really efficient, and then that kind of debunks this phrase or this thought process of, well, we're born with a certain amount of speed. Well, yeah, that's true to a degree, but if you can make somebody more efficient, especially when you're playing on a relatively small playing surface like a basketball court as compared to like a soccer pitch or a football field, we can make athletes really efficient, and then they become much quicker on that court. So that's a lot of what I do. It's very technical based and skill focused.
So when an athlete's coming to you to work with you one-on-one or in a group, I don't know if you work with a bunch of like basketball teams, are they coming to you because they've got injured, or they know they need to start strength training, or they need to get faster to compete at the next level?
Yeah, I get both. I actually have a girl right now who she decided to stay with softball, but she was a basketball player, and she's on her second ACL. And they both happened in basketball. They were kind of non-contact injuries. And so, they heard through the grapevine, because I've worked with a lot of girls over the years with ACL and different type of injuries and trying to bring them back after they've been, they've obviously gone through their therapy. But you and I both know sometimes that's certainly not the end of the road. The insurance may say, well, that's all you're getting, but we know better than that. So I spend a lot of time on building confidence, and confidence comes through the movement efficiency, making them realize you're okay. You're okay. The surgery went down the right path for the recovery that you need. Now all we have to do is build your confidence back, and we put them in the right positions to do that. So if I get an athlete that is in that situation, I have to take a different pathway. But if I get a healthy athlete that's coming to me to become a better basketball player or whatever, I still can't throw them into the highest end of the training level. I have to make sure that I assess them and gradually bring them along, especially if they haven't had a lot of previous training, because we have to be concerned with tissue quality. If we do something too hard too quick, and then we can get some kind of an acute inflammation, and now they come in each time with sore knees. So we have to make sure that we're safe in the type of training that we use. And a lot of it starts out through just good, solid strength training so that they have the ability and the capacity to now handle higher loads that their body's going to get when we start doing speed training.
So I was talking to Dave Smith, and I told you this. As a parent, you have firsthand knowledge, obviously, because your daughter is going into play in college. And I'm pretty confident, because I've watched the videos on Instagram. Bailey has been training probably for a very long time with you. Did you see a difference as Bailey got older and, was in middle school and high school, and now she's going into college? Did you see the benefit that she had from strength training all those years, and saw a difference with the other girls she was playing against?
Definitely, yeah, because both my daughters are not very big. They're about 5'3", maybe. They're going to tell you they're 5'4" or higher, but they're about 5'3". Not, just not very big girls. And I'm, neither was I. I'm not a very, I'm 5'10", and, I relied on movement and speed. That's what allowed me to play at a higher level. And I always taught them that. I said, let's not look at it as a disadvantage. It's an advantage. So with Bailey, as compared to my older daughter, Jay, Bailey didn't really get into training much until about her freshman year, when she started having to compete against 4A schools, which is the biggest schools in Indiana. And she realized really quick, she kind of came into my office and said, Dad, I think I got to get stronger. And all right, let's go. And then we went on a journey. And I'm telling you, she bought into it, and she actually really looked forward to it. And probably, Jen, about 15, 20 minutes ago, I got a text from her. She's down in Florida now. And she said, we're starting strength training this week. And she goes, I can't wait to get back in it, because I feel like I've lost some stuff over a week. So she really saw the benefits of it, especially when trying to drive and stay on a line, getting into the lane, and create, even if she's just driving to make a pass, but having to get in space. She found out really quickly that her shoulders got stronger, her hips got stronger, her core created stability, and now she was able to make plays that she couldn't make when she was a little girl. And now, and I said, okay, now you go to college, and it starts over again, because now they're bigger, stronger, and you're going to get you're going to get women that you're going to play against. So I said, it doesn't stop, but let's find your strengths, and let's play to those strengths, and allow the physical strength you have help you with your individual strengths.
Yeah, no, I mean, I 100% agree. And Dave and I were talking about this, is that when you're going into college as a freshman, you're not the best player anymore. So you have that kind of anxiety, that worry. If we can take out the worry about you competing in the weight room and not being the weakest link, I think that will help these girls adapt better to their new environment.
Yes, without a doubt. Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing, is if they, strength does several things for us. We know that it helps performance if we're smart with it. We got to be careful, because it can also hinder it if we don't follow proper principles of training. But when an athlete knows that it's helping them, and they start to feel it, and it's almost like hitting one good golf shot. It kind of makes you feel like, okay, I love this game. Same thing with strength. All of a sudden you get hit one time, and you're like, hey, I didn't actually move. I stayed there and I held my ground. All of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm bought into it. And then now it becomes a journey of, let's just see where we can go with this to make my game better.
I know you posted this on your Instagram or one of your social media accounts, that Bailey did get a summer strength and conditioning program. And I know you guys were following it, to the best of your ability, probably adding some stuff in. Just talk about how important it is to do the strength and conditioning programs, and just your love your expertise on seeing some of these strength and conditioning programs and how they can be improved, how they're good. Because I've seen a lot of them this summer with my girls. I have a ton of girls going off to college. And the one thing that I take away from all this is a lot of these strength coaches are assuming these incoming freshmen have never strength trained in their life. Yeah. We had to progress the workouts because it was too easy. So I would just love to know your take on that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. You're going to get both ends of the spectrum. The program that Bailey got from her coach, and I believe her coach kind of teaches like a strength class. You know, a lot of times the college coaches, that's what they'll do. They'll have like a token activity and they'll get the strength. And so I think that's what she does, but I don't really know her background in it. I would assume it's not extremely strong from the program that I saw, but I think what happens is sometimes they take a program that they saw somebody else do, or maybe a college team or a WNBA team, and they say, hey, yeah, we're going to do that now with these incoming freshmen. And the problem is, especially with the program that she had sent, it was very much track oriented. And my problem with that is not so much the distances that she was asked, even though I wasn't thrilled with that, because I saw a decrement in Bailey's strength and speed after 2 weeks of doing it. And so I immediately made a change. I said, you be ready for whatever test she has to do, but we need to keep your speed and strength. So, but what happens is those programs, a lot of times, they can set off an acute and then eventually a chronic dysfunction, and sometimes it shows up as pain, sometimes it shows up as poor patterning. So if you take a girl, like she's got some teammates that are like 6'2", and they're big, strong post players. You make them do a lot of distance running and they've never done it before. Now all of a sudden you've got dysfunctional patterning that is going to be hard to undo, because when you get into the season, you don't get a lot of rest. You don't get a chance to let your knees rest or your back that maybe took a beating from some of these training methods. So my thing is, with college summer programs, is if they're too easy, as the case you saw a lot of, and I have too, or they're on the other end of the spectrum, it's way too much volume and not appropriate volume. We have to make sure we find a middle ground and understand we do not need to be in the best shape of our life in the middle of July. Season's a long ways away. We need to make sure we're strong enough. We've got good speed, agility, coordination, balance, strength, all those things. And then we can work towards getting in great shape when the season comes, because speed is a lot harder to improve and strength than conditioning. Conditioning is just work. Okay, you can get them in shape if they have at least a basic level of condition going into it. But yeah, that was the biggest thing. It was a struggle at first, and Bailey was so dedicated to the program. I told her, I said, believe me, I won't leave you hanging. I'm going to make sure you can do whatever she's going to want you to do. And she did. When they did their mile tests and their distance stuff, she was right there with them all, but she maintained her speed and strength, which was important.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we had to do a 1.5-mile test when I went back to school as a senior. And I got to tell you, like, I never was a distance runner, I guess, because a 1.5 miles isn't that. Because basketball is a game of sprints. Like, I just tried to play basketball in the summer to stay in, the best shape I could to go back. And I literally probably for the last month before I went back, that is all I focused on, was running on the track to run that mile. And I'm like, and then, as I've gotten older and now obviously the training I do, I was like, why do I want to put my effort or my kids focusing on the track when they have 20 more things they need to worry about? So I never was a fan of like the long distance running. I have to say, a lot of the programs I got, we did not have a lot of long distance running this year. And we just do a lot of sleds. We do a lot of assault bikes. We do a lot of ropes, and the kids love it. And then when they do have to go run their sprints, they're like, oh my God, I can run. And I'm like, yeah, you don't need to run long distance. So I was just curious in your take, because I saw you mention something, but I wanted you to elaborate on it.
Yeah. And again, and I told Bailey, I said, this is not your dad being, trying to override your coach's program or anything, but that's like, that'd be like me going to my accountant and saying, I think you're doing that wrong. I want you to do this. I don't know accounting, I don't get offended, but I chuckle every time I see it. I'm like, this is what I've done for 30 years. I listen to the best people in the world in performance training. So when I get a program like that, I look at it and I say, geez, they just got to put a little bit of effort into reading. Just go on Google and Google. They can find what's right and wrong for the most part. And sometimes they don't. They just take what they've had done to them, or they have the mentality of, I'm going to really show these girls. I'm going to get them in shape quick. I'm going to push them hard. And it just isn't the right thing to do. So, so that's kind of the approach I kind of take, was like, okay, we're not going to disrespect it, but I'm also not going to put my daughters or my athletes in jeopardy when I know better. That's what it comes down to.
So obviously you saw the difference Bailey had when she first started strength training as a freshman that obviously made her more stronger, more physical in high school. And I'm sure you're probably going to hear firsthand, obviously with the text she's sending you, like how it's been for her freshman year. Talk about, for any of the parents that are listening or even coaches that don't have their teams lift, we're talking middle school and high school, why it's so important we start them at a young age and why they do some form of strength training in middle school and high school.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, strength is the foundation of everything we do. Okay, so it's people are amazed when they come to my training sessions and they're like, "Lee, that's all you do for speed?" They're like, "You do 10 minutes and everything else is, is movement, quality, strength, and stuff." I thought, well, yeah, because that's what we have to do. I mean, we're throwing medicine balls, we're doing other things, but I try to get them to understand that for these young ladies in basketball, especially, is there are so many demands on their body in one play. It's not like a track sprinter who really has one thing to worry about. Basketball, you never know what's going to happen, and often it happens under contact. So I might think I have a clean path, and all of a sudden I get bumped. Now I'm off balance. Can I manage that loss of balance with strength and stability? So the weight room gives our system a chance to be able to absorb forces as well as produce it. Especially with our younger athletes, I'm more concerned with them being able to absorb forces early, because the producing the force is going to happen just by them playing, right? They're going to run, they're going to jump, they're going to change directions. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they learn proper form of absorbing it. So we can put them on maybe a slow squat pattern or a split squat or a coming down slow off a step up. There's many things we can do with them. And same with the upper body. Okay, we want to control it there. Maybe some eccentrics or isometric strength. But what it does is it gives the joint system a chance to be able to stabilize in any of the movements. So whether I move forward, backwards, vertically, angular, my body has a chance to be able to stabilize when I'm stronger. That strength now can be reversed really quick as they learn more in the weight room. So as my athletes, so Jay and Bailey, my two daughters, when they were younger, they weren't doing what they're doing now. Now they did learn, like say Olympic lifts and things like that when they were younger, but it was very much just technical. If you probably saw some of Bailey's videos, I mean, we were pushing. She was hitting some heavy weights and it was all on her. I said, "Are you ready?" She goes, "Yeah, let's go. I'm ready to go." So we would go heavy. But that was because we built such a foundation of all this stability and eccentric and core strength. And that allowed her to be able to handle a lot of weight. So if you have a young girl, let's say, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, just teach them the patterns of movement. Teach them a squat, a hinge, a push, a press, vertically, horizontally, all these things. Just give them foundational stuff, and then strength will show itself. Like all of a sudden you're gonna say, "Okay, that's too easy. I need to push them a little bit harder." That just kind of naturally shows its face. So you can gradually build, and then when they become, a little bit older, a little bit stronger, now you can challenge it in all different type of patterns. But without strength, you're going to limit their performance and you're going to potentially increase their injury risk. And, at the end of the day, you got to keep them healthy, keep them on the court.
Yeah. I mean, it boggles my mind to this day, and I don't know why. When I was talking to Jeremy, and he's the head strength coach, works with the Barrel Lady Bears, everyone listening, and he was saying that most of the freshmen they have coming in has zero IQ when it comes to strength training. And these girls are freaks of nature, and they're playing at probably one of the best women's basketball programs in the whole entire country. Zero strength. And I'm like, holy crap.
I know.
And I'm like, that just it just boggles my mind that these elite girls, how that's such a missing piece with their athletic development.
Yep, it is too. And the thing is, it just goes to show you, if where I live here in Indiana, okay, we live in a state that athletics is really, really important. So all the high schools of the larger school system, so your 4As, your 3As, some 2As, and in football you would say 6A, 5A, just because football's bigger. Everybody has a full-time strength coach. All the high schools have full-time strength coach. The little town that I live in, there's a high school named Center Grove. They have about 750 students a class. They have one of the best strength coaches in the state. His name is Marty Mills. And every time I get one of their athletes that come to me, they're exemplary in their technique and their form. Well, those kids go on to college, and the response is always by their college strength coach, like, man, what have you been doing? Because this is better technique than I would teach. So that's valuable. And that's something I always took a lot of pride in. My athletes go to college knowing all the lifts, all the variations, all the auxiliary lifts, so that they, number one, can maybe become someone that can help them, help the strength staff, but also it lessens the burden on them of lack of confidence, okay? Because when you go into college, there's always that anxiety. Well, when you go in there and all of a sudden the strength coach says, you know what, you're ahead of most of my athletes, well, right there, that gives them a burst of confidence.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing also is, the injury rate that especially the young females are having right now is out of control. Now, obviously, yes, they play year round. These kids don't get a rest, but I think the lack of strength training and having at least a year under their belt would probably be able to reduce a hell of a lot of these injuries. And again, I'm sure you pull at your hair too a little bit that they just don't strength train.
Yeah. No, and that's it. And I don't get it, because it's too prevalent now. We know it. All you got to do is watch an ESPN commercial, and you're going to see something with strength training. Probably 50% of the commercial, they're going to be doing something. They're showing athletes doing some kind of exercise. And I don't understand, because it doesn't have to be difficult. It literally could be body weight, bands, balls, whatever, just to give them relative strength. So I don't like the excuse, well, we don't have a weight room or we don't have time. When I coached a high school team that's probably about an hour and so from where I live now, really small school, but we were one of the better teams around. We got really strong. I got my kids strong. We did everything on the gym, in the gym floor. I took jungle gym straps or TRX straps. I put them up on the bleachers. I had tubing. We did it right there, right on the gym floor. I never had to leave it, and our girls got strong. We had jump roping and medicine ball throws, and these young little thin girls. I started 3 freshmen. By the time we got to the season, and then halfway through, and then into the next year, we became a really strong team. And at that level, we competed really well because we were strong.
Yeah, I don't get it either, because you put out a ton of resources for free. I put a ton of resources. We put these summits, and it just cracks me up that, number one, I don't have enough time. But also, people worry about the cost. And I'm like, how much do you think an ACL reconstruction surgery costs? Because insurance ain't going to cover all of it. Then PT, so it just. Yeah, no, I just love talking about this with strength coaches, because I think that's one thing we all agree on, is that strength training for the most part is not going to hurt you as long as it's done by a professional that knows what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the funny thing is, I've been having some great conversation with some top pros lately on this. There's even this theory out there now that with the younger kids who get exposed to strength training earlier, that they're starting to see even greater growth, like to the long bone, greater growth because of the exposure to strength. And when I'm talking about heavy weight, we're just talking about exposure to it. I had a long talk with a really good strength coach, Mike Boyle, who was talking about he's seen it, and I have actually a powerlifting friend that has seen it with all the siblings who started younger than their older brother or sister. They're growing, so there's starting to be some talk about that. Well, the funny thing is, I thought that for years and years. If it's done properly and you expose it, it only makes sense. You're creating a stimulus, and a stimulus usually creates some kind of growth. And so there's just no excuse to not do it. But like you said, if the coach doesn't know how to do it, it doesn't take much to go to somebody locally. Most high schools have a college within range. Just go, maybe even if to pay for an hour of the head strength coach's time. Learn the basics so that you can bring it back to your high school team and teach them how to lift properly.
Yeah, even in today's society, the training apps that we have to deliver online coaching and online training. My app, I can put a video in there and you could follow along. So really there's no excuse. And I feel like you and I could just chat all afternoon about this. But to wrap up this call, is there anything else you want to add? And then let's tell everyone where they can find you on social media and anything else you want to talk about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I want to add is everything we talked about is extremely important. The strength training, the speed and agility training, all the different variables that can improve athletic performance is really, really important. We have to do that. But I think, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, Jen, is I think we're playing so much, and I don't think playing is bad, but combined with high amounts of travel, little rest, I think we have to start to get parents, and I'm fighting this battle now. Actually, I have an athlete I'm going to train in about 3 hours, and I go back and forth with the parent on this. They're not understanding the rest part of it. So training is critical. Well, part of training is the recovery and the regeneration, especially with our young females. Okay, we've got to make sure that they're getting appropriate rest, nutrition, all this stuff, because then all the work that we do has a chance to evolve in the nervous system, in the muscular, the chemical systems, and then it can become a solid structure for them to use. But if they strength train and then leave us and have a tournament at 8 till 10 at night, 45 minutes away, and then have to get back in the car and they eat crap, now everything that we did just becomes a compounding deficit to their training. So that's the number one thing I really am trying to do now, is get people to understand it's okay to rest. You're going to probably see greater results. We just got to get parents to trust us and youth coaches. And go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, no, it was funny because Mike Boyle, we were talking, his name came up earlier. He's been on a tirade on Instagram about don't make your athletes sore. And it's so true. Our job is not to beat the crap out of them. It's, to get them better, but also to make sure they recover, because everything else they do with, they play 20 games on a weekend. That might be an exaggeration, but like they're playing 6 to 9 games, like their bodies can't take no more, whether they're 14 or 20. It's just, these kids just get beaten down all the time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I had a girl that I recently just worked with. She had 13 games from Friday till Sunday. 13 games. How do you, number one, that's not great for their bodies, but number two, how do you actually care about wins and losses when you're playing that many games in a weekend, and then you probably got it again the next week, and you're like, who cares? I lost. I got 5 more games tomorrow. You know what I mean? So that's one of my things. And I'm not opposed to AAU or travel games. I'm just like, we've got to get it under control where we get competition back.
Oh, yeah. That could be another interview for another day about the AAU culture and everything surrounding it. So, Lee, if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on social media. If they go to anything at Lee Taft, they can find me. Or if they go to my website, leetaft.com, plenty of resources there. And if they just want to get a lot of free tips and stuff, I do a lot on what's called Speed Tips from My Garage. It's a YouTube, and I try to send stuff out at least 3 to 4 times, sometimes 5 times a week. So a lot of free tips, and they can reach out anytime.
Awesome. Well, Lee, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Number one, talking basketball, but then having your input on the speed training.
Thanks so much, Jen. Best of luck.